lot of problems with that party's economic record, and I'm not sure that I would say Mark Carney's record leading the Bank of England was particularly fantastic either. And now they've kind of saddled themselves with this narrow minority government, led by a party that they were already unhappy with, and all apparently in response to these threats about Trump annexing Canada that I don't think Trump or most Americans take particularly seriously.
I am joined now by Joe Sternberg, an editorial board member at the Wall Street Journal. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Hugo.
Good to speak to you. Lovely to have you back on the show, and we've got a lot to cover. Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has declared victory in his country's general election, completing a historic comeback for the Liberals. Opinion polls suggested that they were 24 points behind the Conservatives in January, but Donald Trump's tariffs and threats to subsume Canada into the US have loomed over the election, with Mr. Carney branding that an American betrayal. Here he is giving his victory speech, Joe, this morning.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen.
Well, it's not clear yet whether Carney, a former Bank of England governor, of course, has yet won a majority. We'll hopefully be finding that out today. The Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, has conceded defeat. He did so in the early hours of this morning.
Canadians have opted for a razor-thin minority government, a virtual tie in the vote count. So I would like to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on leading this minority government. We'll have plenty of opportunity to debate and disagree, but tonight we come together as Canadians. We will do our job. Yes, we will do our job to hold the government to account. But first,
Joe, this is an unprecedented sort of turnaround. But then hearing Carney speaking about what he regards as the threat Canada is under, that's all obviously pretty unprecedented as well. We're kind of in really uncharted territory here, aren't we?
Yeah, and, I am not going to presume to tell Canadians how they should have voted in this election, but if anyone had asked me for my advice, I probably would have suggested that they completely ignore Trump, because I think that the problem that they've ended up with now is that there's a reason that Mark Carney's Liberal Party, and when it was led by Justin Trudeau, was so unpopular heading into this election. There were a lot of problems with that party's economic record, and I'm not sure that I would say Mark Carney's record leading the Bank of England was particularly fantastic either. And now they've kind of saddled themselves with this narrow minority government, led by a party that they were already unhappy with, and all apparently in response to these threats about Trump annexing Canada that I don't think Trump or most Americans take particularly seriously.
Really, I mean, you don't think Trump takes them seriously? You don't think he means it? You don't think he'd wish to do it if he could?
I find it hard to believe that he would. I think that this is one of those issues where, he probably said it in the spur of the moment, just because, he has this tendency to say most of the thoughts that flit into his head at any given second, discovered that it was getting a rise out of his political opponents and creating a bit of a buzz, and so he doubled down on it. And I think this is the problem that we had with Trump in the first term. It's the problem that we've had with Trump over the 4 years between his presidencies, and it's the problem that we're having in spades now, which is I think that he has this remarkable instinct for how he can goad and troll his political opponents. I think sometimes you have to take that seriously, and sometimes maybe you're better off ignoring it.
I mean, I guess Carney's position, I mean, as he said in that quote we played, is that Trump wants to weaken Canada so he can take over Canada. Whether or not the second half of that is really true or just rhetoric, as you say, the first half of that does seem to be true. I mean, he has weakened Canada. The tariffs have had a major impact on the Canadian economy and will continue to do so. It's pretty reasonable that Canadians are bristling at that, isn't it?
Well, I think there's an interesting moral here for other countries around the world because you've got to understand that before the Trump tariffs came along, Canada was a self-weakening economy because the economic record of Justin Trudeau had been so poor. So, I mean, before Trump's inauguration, Canadians were anxious about inflation and whether economic growth was really performing as well as it ought to, and a whole host of other policy problems that Canada basically did to itself. And so I think that the message that countries like the UK or European countries should be extracting from this is we have to take a hard look in the mirror. What are the things that we do that make ourselves weaker and less resilient in the face of whatever Trump is doing, and then stop doing those things?
I mean, sure, but I mean, irrespective of what we're doing to ourselves, and I guess every government around the world has sort of been harming themselves to some degree, sort of post-pandemic. There's also the fact that tariffs are having an impact on places, and you wonder. You look at the example Canada set. You wonder if there is going to be this sort of popular appetite for, I don't know, someone like Britain to be more muscular in the face of the damage that American tariffs will inflict on our economy as well.
Oh, I think there definitely will be, and I'm not downplaying the damage that the Trump tariffs are going to do to the rest of the world, or frankly to the U.S. economy itself, which is a big part of the story of the first 100 days of Trump. But I think that the key thing is, given that the U.S. is doing something that is so awful for the global economy and for America's allies and its alliances around the world, the question that other governments have to ask themselves is, what are we going to do in response? And I think that Canadian voters have chosen very narrowly to sort of double down on a political party and a bunch of economic policies that were not working for them very well even before Trump. And I think it's worth asking if that is necessarily the best way to respond to the damage that Trump is doing.
Looking at Donald Trump's first 100 days more broadly, Joe, I mean, what do you take from them, and how are they being taken in the United States? The things we focus on in this country and elsewhere in the world, I suppose, about Donald Trump's first 100 days, trade, tariffs, Ukraine, perhaps Gaza, these aren't the things that are having the biggest impact in the United States, are they?
Yeah, look, the election last November was very simple. There were two issues that Trump got elected to deal with. One was the illegal immigration crisis, and the other was the economy and particularly inflation. And so I think that sort of you have to focus like a laser on those two things to understand, whether this first 100 days has been a success politically. I think on immigration policy, there have been more successes than failures. I think there's certainly a lot of evidence that illegal crossings at the southern border have gone down. But, that is coming at a political cost because, Trump's willingness to steamroll over due process issues concerning deportations and the rest of it, it creates a lot of vulnerabilities if Americans start perceiving that, even a couple people might have been deported unjustly. And I think that will cause political support to evaporate. I mean, on the economy, Trump is really in an awful lot of trouble right now because the tariff policy is exactly the wrong thing that you would do if you were trying to get inflation under control and get the economy growing robustly again. And he's doing it because tariffs are really the only thing that Trump has consistently believed in for the past 40 years. And so he kind of went down that path. And we're already starting to see the economic costs in the markets and evidence that business and consumers are very uncertain about the future, might be holding back from investing a bit, which would be very dangerous for him. And we're also seeing it in the market reaction, which has been very negative. So I think it's been a mixed record for the first 100 days.
I mean, the Times has conducted a survey of Americans and what they make of the first 100 days. And on the economy, as you say, it is pretty uncomfortable reading for Trump. Only 11% of Americans say they're better off since Donald Trump took office, including just 14% of Republicans. Only 23% regard the state of the economy as excellent or good. I did wonder, though, whether if on inflation, he's perhaps being slightly hard done by. Because you look at the heights that inflation hit under Joe Biden, and I mean, that was a global thing. It wasn't entirely Joe Biden's fault. But I mean, inflation is lower than it has been. Do you think there's just a fear that it's about to soar back up again?
I think that there's definitely concern about that, and I think that voters also have very low tolerance for inflation, and they're right to have low tolerance for inflation. And, I think that they're also right to be unhappy about Trump's record on this issue in the first 100 days, because, if we are in this situation, which we were when he was inaugurated, that the inflation rate is finally slowing. And remember, that only means that prices are not increasing as quickly as they were before. They're still going up. Why is he going to undo some of that progress with the tariff policy? I think that voters are absolutely right to ask that question.